It brings me to something else I wanted to ask about you about. Two of your previous books were about Africa, and you mentioned that you see a connection in the way that big corporations are often predatory, preying on communities that are vulnerable in one way or another. I wonder what your experience in Africa brought to this book.
It was a real wake up call for me. It's really easy as a Canadian to grow up with this myth that we're somehow different or better, or we have better governance and we're more socially responsible than other places in the world, and kind of Canada spends money. I met a lot of Canadians in Africa, Canadian quote experts, over there preaching about good governance and environment and all sorts of things, and then to come home and think, wait a minute, maybe we should have been practicing some of those things at home. And the colonialism that was so evident when I went to Africa as a foreigner, various places in Africa, whether it was a former French colony or former British colony or former German colony, the legacy, the negative legacies are still there. You see it everywhere. And neocolonialism of the West and now China and in Africa. And the thing is that I came back to Canada and I think, well, wait a minute. I had never been to Pictou Landing First Nation. I didn't know where it was in my own province that I know so intensely. I think I know every beach in Nova Scotia from my childhood, but I had never been to Pictou Landing First Nation. And I had never learned about it in school. And I think it started to open my eyes to the colonialism and the kind of extractive industries that actually Canada was built on. So for me, it was a real personal journey of myth busting. I think Canada is just barely now, kind of waking up to the reality of what our country really was built on, which was colonialism and injustice. So yeah, economic growth at what cost? I think that's the question I always ask.
Most of your stories deal with memory, which has a prominent place in the characters' minds. The first-person narrators, especially, live in the present, but they tie almost every moment that unfolds to recollected events from the past. Is memory, in your view, an integral aspect of human experience? Is it also a dangerous pastime, as you admit, in the sense that it risks idealized nostalgia, as some of the narrators self-consciously acknowledge?
That is a danger because I know that nostalgia enhances the illusions of juvenile dreams, as I said in the story. But I write from, I start a story off with some little event that happened, like I remember picking blueberries with my mother just once. And that was enough to get me going in that. And once I get in that age bracket, in that time, I stay there. And when I start a story, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to end. So you always think better when you're writing. So I worked through it, and I've come up with that ending there about mother dying, and my father was never overseas. A lot of people relate my writing to nonfiction. And I've had people ask me, creative nonfiction, and how do you do it? Well, I never had a writing course, a creative writing course. So I just write. Alistair MacLeod told me one time, he said, write like you were writing a letter home to your mother. And explain things. And that's a lesson I took from Alistair. And so that's the way I write. I know that fiction gives you a lot more room. You can create things. You don't have to stick to the facts. So, I write fiction. It's all fiction, although it sounds like nonfiction. That's one of the hurdles I have had to deal with along the way, people calling it nonfiction. But do they really think that out of my 21 books, that many things happened to me personally? So it is fiction. And I draw on some facts to kind of steady the story.
I wonder if you can briefly sort of explain to viewers the setup. Our narrator, our hero, finds himself a resident in a mall. Can you describe that situation?
Sure. Well, the narrator in the novel doesn't even really understand how or why he's in the situation that he's in. I mean, he's a kind of a buffoon. But basically the premise is that this mall, this failed shopping mall, is offering a residency, a 3-month residency, I think, to live in the shopping mall. And to be a kind of artist in residence, I get, though the narrator isn't really an artist and is a bit confused by the prospect of what kind of work they're supposed to be making while living in the mall. And the idea for this came from me doing, various writer residencies at the Toronto Public Library and at universities and places like that. So, and what's funny is that when I was about halfway through this book, the Mall of America in States started a writer in residency program. Yeah, and I thought that was great. I just thought the confluence of what I thought I was making up and then something appearing in the real world was really fun. So anyway, he's in this situation where he gets to live in the mall in a kind of a retrofitted store that has like sleeping quarters and a bathroom and stuff like that. And the requirements of his residency are making work and engaging the public, and he doesn't know what kind of work he's supposed to make, and there is no public in the mall to engage. So he's kind of set up to fail from the beginning.
Do you have any advice for other people wanting to become writers or illustrators?
I think it's hard to give advice to young people about art, because I feel like they really know what it takes to be a good illustrator. You sort of forget it when you're older. You forget to have fun, and you forget to play, and you forget to just not worry about it too much. Especially with picture books, a lot of it is about just about telling a story in a way that you want to see it being told, in a way that maybe you haven't seen being told before. There's nobody telling you that you can't do anything that way. It's a great place to work, because everybody's so encouraging. So just follow your ideas all the way through. They're all very, very good ideas, and don't forget to play. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't, if something doesn't look quite right, it's all right. You're on the way to becoming always on the way to becoming a better artist or writer. It's just, if you stop, then that's where you'll be. You'll always be at that level. But if you keep on going, you're going to get better and better and better and better. And it's pretty soon, you'll be the artist that you've always wanted to be. Well, hopefully, you'll be the artist that you've always dreamed you could be. I think I'm there right now.
I have a question from another audience member, Ronan O'Driscoll, and he asks, what is it about Cape Breton that has produced so many artists and writers for such a small population? I see parallels with Ireland, he says, but I'm interested to hear your take.
I think this goes back to the question about the light and the darkness, and I think there's something about hardship and struggle, like that real human struggle for survival in a lot of regards, that breeds creativity and resilience and the bravery required to be a storyteller. And part of the parallels with Ireland I see too, especially in industrial Cape Breton as opposed to rural Cape Breton, which was where I spent most of my time and where a lot of my ancestors were. And many of them came over from Newfoundland, and they arrived in Newfoundland from Ireland. So there were people who were already coming from rugged places and difficult circumstances, and storytelling and humor, and even the dark humor, is what kept people going. It's what gave them the strength to just power through and deal with whatever life threw at them. So I think that's a really important piece of where the creativity in Cape Breton comes from. It's our tenacity, and it's born of that light and that darkness.
And you yourself went on to serve as Halifax's Poet Laureate. For the majority of us who will never have that experience, can you tell us what exactly the role is of a Poet Laureate?
Thankfully, the folks who kind of organize and run the Poet Laureate program, so Jamie McClellan, has been really wonderful in allowing the poet in the position to really mold the role as they see fit and what it is that they want to do. And so for me, Elle was right before me, and she had a really strong, advocacy voice, and I really admired that, and I really wanted to do that. So in that role, I decided to use it because I was the first Indigenous person. To advocate and speak up for so many Indigenous causes, especially around, the Edward Cornwallis statue, and how that kind of came through my 10 years Poet Laureate. But there are some official duties, like you have to do 6 official city events, which include readings in council, as well as I did a New Year's one, and I did a Canada Day one, and I also did the Halifax Explosion 100-year anniversary. So I had a lot of pretty significant ones, Canada 150. So that was my kind of piece as being Poet Laureate, but it was also an opportunity for me to kind of raise concerns, to people who make decisions and have access to them and have them listen to me. And so that came with a big sense of responsibility that I had to make sure that I was, making my community proud and bringing forward concerns that I think a lot of us had, but didn't necessarily have the access to individuals to make decisions for us.
So, do you have any maybe like tips or advice to people that are trying to become authors that maybe like your style, for example?
Sure. So I would say my 3 biggest tips are: number 1, read as much as you can and read everything. So read comics, read things on the internet, read magazine articles, read nonfiction, read fiction. The more that you read, the better your sense of language and story and possibility is. It's sort of like when people tell you to eat vegetables and they say you are what you eat. They want you to eat vegetables because they're good for you. I feel that way about books. So you are what you read. So read as much as you can. That's the easiest one. The second one is to keep a journal or a diary or some sort of writing book. And that's where you can write down ideas that you have, names that you like, books that you really enjoy. It's just a great place to have and sort of start, and also to sort of make it a habit. So maybe every day you write something in your journal. It doesn't have to be from a story that you're working on, but at least you're taking time out every day to form that writing habit. And my third piece of advice is to find a writing buddy. It's good to have a person you can bounce ideas off of. So much of writing is being alone and being in your own room or your own head just writing, but knowing that someone is going to read it and they're going to give you feedback is really helpful. I have a reading and writing buddy, and she lives in Vancouver, so we live far apart. But we send each other stuff somewhat regularly, and it's great for me because whenever I get feedback, I get energized to keep going, and I do the same thing for her. So again, read as much as you can, start a writing habit with a journal every day, or a little bit a day, it doesn't have to be a lot, and then find that writing buddy who can help you on your writing journey.